Hi, everyone.
Hi. Good morning, Disrupt. Thank you for waking up so early and working around the Apple event. It's going to be an exciting day on stage between our NSA panel, Doug Leone, Reid Hoffman, Max Levchin, and Adi Tatarko. There's plenty to keep you glued to your seats.
And everyone was very impressed yesterday with the quality of the Startup Battlefield presentations in the afternoon. And we have another 15 that are going to also be great. And now, please welcome our host, Lena Rao.
To kick things off this morning, we have Sequoia's Doug Leone and Medallia's Sanjit Biswas, who will be talking enterprise and customer management with TechCrunch founder and Crunch Fund founder Michael Arrington.
I'm trying to get away from you.
Right. Gotta keep these guys apart.
You just took the absolute most convenient seat for yourself. Right behind you. Oh, man. So we, once again, I'm stuck with the morning interview. So we have to, I'm not saying you guys are a bad interview because you're absolutely not, but the crowd is a little underwhelming this time in the morning. So there has to be something to help wake them up. So are you guys awake? Yeah. So I am up here with legendary venture capitalist Doug Leone from Sequoia. And Doug, you joined Sequoia, was it back in '89? Am I right? Or
in '88.
'88, yeah. So you've been there. And Sanjit Biswas. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Sanjit is the founder of Meraki. Raise your hand if you've heard of Meraki and know anything about them. Okay, so not many. So our job is to increase the number of people who know what the heck you did to sell your company for $1.2 billion a year ago.
Great.
So Meraki was bought a year ago in November for, less than a year ago now, for $1.2 billion, is that correct?
That's right.
From Cisco. And Doug, you invested in Meraki, Sequoia did. How much did you personally make on that transaction?
Thank you, Michael, for the layup first question. Around $400 million.
Okay, so,
and it's not personally, it's what Sequoia Capital made on behalf of its limited partners.
So yeah, I was asking what you personally made of that $400 million cut.
$399 million came to Doug Leone, and $1 million was spread around.
Do you guys, is it all in cash? Do you guys just take cash and like?
No, well, in that case, it was a cash transaction. We would prefer to have stock all the time.
Yeah, Cisco
because
stock,
yeah, exactly. But in that case, it was cash, and it was a $400 million gain on behalf of Sequoia and all the limited partners of Sequoia Capital.
So, I always love interviewing you, Doug, but this time you guys wanted to bring an entrepreneur on stage with you, which you do occasionally, and at first I was wondering why. And then as we prepped, I understood like the fascinating story here about Meraki. And so Sanjay, why don't we just start and we'll start with a couple of questions to get a feel for why you started Meraki when you were 24, and how you worked with Sequoia and whether that went well or poorly for you. So tell us about the very beginning.
Sure. So the backstory behind Meraki is a bunch of us were grad students out at MIT. We were working on our PhDs as part of the networking research group there. And we had a project called the RoofNet. So we were trying to cover Cambridge, which is the city that has MIT and Harvard in it, with free Wi-Fi, and this is 10 years ago. So that was the initial research project. What ended up happening is we took what was a kind of $4,000 research platform.
And by the way, what does that mean? You were creating software that worked with off-the-shelf routers. Like, what does it mean you wanted to cover them with free Wi-Fi?
Right. So it was the reason it was called RoofNet. We were installing antennas on students' roofs, and then we ran a cable down to a box that was running our software. So off-the-shelf hardware, custom software, and figure out routing and kind of all the networking stuff.
Okay.
And the whole thing had to be very easy to operate because there were 3 of us. We were running the network, writing research papers, teaching, kind of doing all that stuff. So in 2006, we shrunk that thing down to fit on a single circuit board, which was kind of the tipping point where things got really exciting. This was also the year Google was talking about doing free Wi-Fi, if you remember, in the city and all that stuff. So we decided to start the company because we just started getting a bunch of inbound demand for, hey, we'd like to buy a RoofNet system from you guys. And actually, Google was one of our first customers, so that was one of our first POs. So we ended up
and they paid you.
Yeah, so they paid us up front, and this is before the days of Kickstarter, so we hadn't raised any venture money at that point. We had Google, a couple of nonprofits, and a bunch of other folks. We sold 3,000 routers before we were actually even in business. And that's what got us to come out here to California. And the whole idea was we were going to take RoofNet and shrink it down, so community Wi-Fi was our first business model.
Yeah. And what year are we in now?
2006.
Okay, so but you raised from Sequoia in '06, didn't you?
The very end, so in December. So we bootstrapped at the beginning. We got to almost $1 million in revenue, and that's when we knew we were onto something and we needed to grow.
Doug, how did you first hear about the company?
Rajiv Matwani, God bless his soul.
He was an angel.
Yes, he was an angel. I think he was an angel investor who invested prior that we did. He gave us a call and we jumped all over it. And what we found was three smart founders, three terrific founders who had a working product and a bit of a misguided plan. What they wanted to do is sell Wi-Fi to apartment building owners so they can make their rents more competitive. And we knew we liked the company, but we didn't like the business plan. But we quickly realized the founders and market trumped the business plan and that we could work with them to help them shape that business plan into something that could be far more attractive.
Let's just take a step back because so many VCs, we all talk about whether it's the founder or the idea, and everybody says it's the founder, but sometimes it's more the idea. But you said is you love the founders, but you didn't like the idea. But it sounds like you didn't like the implementation of the technology in that case. Is that?
It's a go-to-market strategy that we weren't completely on board, and we mentioned that during the due diligence phase. And
before
I think
you invested,
of course. And then in their hearts of hearts, I think they knew that was the case.
Yeah.
And so for the next 3-4 months, actually for the next 2 or 3 years, we worked very hard in trying to find a market that would be the perfect market fit for the product. And it all started with weekly meetings at Sequoia Capital or at the company. And later when the company grew a bit, it was monthly meetings and the quarterly meetings. And look, it wasn't all roses. We had some tough times, but we as investors and partners had a chance to do one of two things, either lay back and be quiet and let the great founders figure things out and help them out, or be a little more aggressive. And in a case where you have terrific founders in the building, the choice that we made was to double down on the founders, and in that case, try to stay out of the way and let them evolve and let them iterate until they found a plan that made a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think a lot of companies talk about their pivot, like it's a single moment. For us, it was more of a walk in the woods. As Doug was saying, it took 2 or 3 years for us to find that fit. So we went from apartment complexes to emerging market carriers, like in Brazil and India and those kind of places. We actually started getting traction, but found the sales cycle was really long. So then we started doing ad-supported Wi-Fi. Then 2008 came around. So we went through all of these different.
You had like 3 business models before you totally nailed it. So,
and then we got into the enterprise.
So, and I've heard Doug and Sequoia in general be called patient investors for the most part, but I also know Doug a little bit, and I have to imagine that it wasn't all mutual admiration, society, rainbow, and rainbows and puppies. How many times would Doug yell at you in a given month on average?
I don't think so. It was actually pretty self-inflicted for us.
0.
Doug, you've yelled at me twice this morning already. It was perfect. Like it was movies should be made about how perfect this relationship was. Wow.
No, I think for us,
it had to be stressful at times.
It was stressful.
Fire everybody.
Right.
I imagine Doug saying that. Everybody's fired.
I don't think you ever said to fire everyone. The thing for us was we really wanted the thing to work, and so we were looking to Doug to help us figure that out. So
and he didn't fire you. That's what's interesting.
He didn't fire me.
There were some really tough times, right?
Right.
And Doug, you talk about this a lot, where you talk about in the founders stay sort of for good or bad. And you said the only I think you said the only C-level job is a CFO. You said you don't like CFOs, first-time CFOs going through an IPO. But was that hard in this case? Were there times when you thought maybe this, needed a new CEO?
No, I guess the thing I thought it was a pretty obvious move. When we have 3 special founders, one a CEO, one a VP of engineering, and one a VP of products, who else is going to try to iterate and find a go-to-market strategy, a business plan that works more than 3 people who built the product and are domain expert? So in my mind, it was the complete obvious choice. And I guess the greatest thing we did for Sanjit and Meraki is we did nothing during times of crises. We stepped back and gave the company a lot of breathing room to iterate.
Well, you also gave them a lot of money. You invested $55 million.
We invested $55 million.
Yeah. So it wasn't that you did nothing.
We invested, what we did is we supported a company in a high price round, the Series B, that really gave the company the runway. We led the Series C round, we led the Series D round. It's a testament to our relationship, the fact that you allowed us to own as much as we did of the company through leading all the rounds. But the most we did when the company really started to work is we pushed the company to grow as fast as we could. I remember the line I told you, go away and, quote, piss away $5 million in experiments. Try to do anything you can to grow as fast as you can.
Yeah. You know, I think in retrospect, it's clear now that Doug was not planning on firing us. We weren't necessarily confident of that, which was good, right? It was kind of healthy fear for our whole management team to feel like if we screwed up and, you know, messed up the business, then we wouldn't be around.
Did he actually tell you at some point to go and piss away $5 million on an experiment?
Yeah, and we were very reluctant to spend money. We were just very careful.
Did you do it?
We started doing like advertising and trying new things. Like on the marketing front, we hired a bunch of sales guys, and it was actually a very good thing for us. We accelerated our sales growth probably 6 months at least by doing that.
So you acquired last year, so that went quite well, and and you've been at Cisco for almost a year now. Mm-hmm. And so how's that going? What changed when you were acquired?
Yeah, you know, it's different. So we're now part of a larger company. We've got a very big brand behind us. So in the enterprise networking market, you know, kind of quick show of hands, how many people have heard of Cisco? It's like, all right. So there's a big delta between the 3 hands that went up for Meraki and, you know, the 80% who know Cisco. So that's kind of been the biggest shift for us is when we walk into a customer, it's not, why should we talk to you? It's tell me about this new product that I've never heard of. So that's really helped a lot. I think John Chambers shared our most recent numbers. We're at a $250 million run rate. So the business has really grown significantly.
What was your revenue when you sold the company?
The public number was 120 million. So we doubled it in that period of time.
Okay.
So I would say the business side has gone really well. Culturally, that was a big concern area for us. We grew the company here in San Francisco. We wanted to preserve and grow that culture. And
you have your own office.
We have our own office. So we leased, we have like 170,000 square feet. So it's like room for 700, 800 people.
Okay. Do you, and we'll get to this a little bit later too, but do you actually work with the guys that embed NSA software directly into Cisco hardware, or is that in a different area?
I like the leading question. So as far as we know, we have nothing to do with NSA stuff. On that being said, I focus on the Meraki portfolio.
So as far as you know, you have nothing to do with NSA stuff?
Yeah.
All right, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. We're not going to talk about that anymore until later. Doug, and you know, there's some other stuff I'd really like to talk to you about, and I think Sanjit will have some interesting input here as well. You know, you're famous for a model of venture capital that has been proven that is, you know, you put a lot of effort into a company. You don't spread a lot of bets around and do very little. Sequoia has dabbled in angel investing in the past. Is that something you're still doing?
Yeah, I think we're very active in angel investing. We probably do 6 or 7 angel investments a year. And
what do you consider an angel investment, by the way?
From 100,000 on up.
Okay, okay.
We only have one class of service, meaning the thing we don't do is we don't make a whole bunch of investments and, as we say, spray and pray and then go after the ones that show some level of success. Prior to making an angel investment, what we do is we make a commitment to the founders that will be there and really help them grow the business. The thing we try to stay away from, as I told you on the phone yesterday, is the angel investors that have 3 or 4 venture firms in it, because at the end of the day, I believe that to be committed for the next 4, 5, or 6 years in a company, it's best for everybody involved. If the venture investors owns somewhat of a meaningful chunk, and that could be 15, 20%, if he owns 7% of the business, it's a bad deal for the founder, it's a bad deal for the venture firm.
Why is that a bad deal? Walk us through that. If the VC only owns 7%.
Because it's return on time, and it's human nature.
Oh, because the VC won't put as much time.
Yeah, it won't put as much time. And look, that you can violate the laws of physics. If someone says, oh, you have my full service, my full attention, I only own 3%, that investor is completely lying to you. Because there's only so many hours to a day, and there are only so many hours.
Would you recommend, though, that startups somehow muddle through the seed round if they can self-finance or friends and family and just skip that and go right to Sequoia? Or are seed rounds a good first step?
No, I think in some cases a seed round, if you're trying to figure out a business plan, if you're trying to create value very quickly, especially in a world where you can create an application very quickly. It is very inexpensive to start a company. It is very expensive to launch a company for the next 6-7 years. And so don't confuse the amount of money that you need in the first 90 days, 120 days to the money that you may need for the next 3 years. So I think angel investing is a terrific role, whether it's from an angel investor like yourself or an angel investor like ourselves. But make sure that the person, the firm you marry for the next 5, 6, 7 years is going to be there for the long term, including some down times. Make sure that partner of yours is vested in time and in dollars and in ownership into your business. That's my advice.
When we talked about this last night, you had a slightly different take on it, which is just a different topic, which is these party rounds in particular seem to annoy you, and and I've seen them as well. In fact, we occasionally participate in them with occasionally, where you'll have, sometimes 20 investors investing $25,000, $50,000 each and getting sort of a small A round out of it. You think that that's a bad idea, is what I'm hearing from this.
It's not that I think it's a bad idea because they annoy me. I actually feel really bad for the founders who has not really thought through that by the time that you raise a $2.5 million angel round, and then you go do a Series A where you want to raise $6, $7, $8, $9 million, and you do the math, and the math says that now this poor founder or these poor sets of founders have lost 40% of their business. It completely breaks my heart, completely breaks my heart. So my advice to founders is think extremely carefully about every single share you sell. Sell as little equity as you can, raise as little equity as you can early on to get to the next milestone where you can raise prices, and make sure that after the Series A, you own a big chunk of the company. If after the Series A, you, the founder, or you, a set of founders, have lost 55% of the company, as I said earlier, it completely breaks my heart. It makes no sense. And that's the reason I'm a little bit leery of angel rounds, of party rounds.
Sanjit, what are your thoughts on this? Because you did do an angel round, just not a party round.
Yeah, I think looking back, our angels were great, especially in that first year. From there on out.
You had Google.
We had Google.
Which you ended up having a partnership with, actually right at the same time or a little bit after.
Yeah, they were kind of customer/investor. Yeah.
And who else?
Rajiv, who was kind of loosely affiliated with Google. He's Larry and Sergey's PhD advisor.
And you obviously liked that because you had such a tight relationship with him.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, some other professors from Stanford and some other Googlers. So it was a pretty small community.
Yeah.
But
then you went hard on Sequoia, right?
We did.
Sequoia did your round, and you brought in the usual suspects. You brought in DAG, which, for the next round after that. But generally speaking, it was mostly Sequoia money from then on out.
Right.
And you raised a total of like 70?
Probably just a little over 70.
And 55 of that was Sequoia.
Yeah. So, I think a lot of it was working with Doug, right? We basically found a partner who understood our business and really spent a lot of time with us and pushed us in the right ways, right? It was when you start bringing in more people, you have no idea what they're going to do in the boardroom. And for us, we were very focused on building the business, and we knew we were kind of on the right track. We just needed to keep investing.
You guys just really like each other, don't you?
Well, I think we've been working together now for 6, 7 years. It works.
Yeah. And when you leave, you said you're probably going to be leaving Cisco shortly, right? To start it.
I love the leading questions.
No, but if you ever do leave, I'm sure you're loyal to Cisco and it's lovely and you have an earnout, but if you ever thought you'd start another company, would you work with Doug again?
Yeah, I think, and that I think is the best testimony. When I meet meet entrepreneurs and they're looking for a Series A intro, I'm always happy to introduce them to Sequoia because they are a good firm and Doug's a great partner.
All right. Do you feel like I'm buttering you guys up a little bit?
It's
a reason for this, yeah. Doug, this whole debate, I think Sarah Lacey started it, but I'm not sure about full service versus classic VCs. How do you see that debate, and what is Sequoia doing?
Well, I don't think we're doing anything that's different. The thing we're doing is we're wrapping the complete set of resources of the partnership. When we write a check, whether it's $100,000 or a $6 million Series A, which I think was a Series A we did. We did $5 million. It felt like 6.
A long time ago.
It was a long time ago. We wrap the whole partnership around it. I don't really know the debate of old-line venture capital versus new angels. I can tell you that we are thrilled there's an angel community. We're thrilled that there's been a recycle of the venture industry where a whole bunch of firms that didn't deserve to be around have gone away. So I think it kept everybody on our toes.
What were the ones in particular that didn't deserve to be around, that haven't gone away yet? Are there any that are still
Oh, I
hanging on?
think there's a number of wonderful firms.
Like what just
Greylock, Andreessen, Kleiner, ourselves, Lightspeed, terrific firms.
Oh, I thought you were saying they were
All
ones
of them
that
need to go away.
go away.
No, they're the ones that should be around. But the thing you should focus is not just the partnership, but the individual within the partnership. And so if you're looking for a partner, make sure that you focus on both the reputation of the partnership and their Rolodex,
Doug,
and the experience of the individual.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but what about this idea of like full service? You walk into a VC firm and now you have marketing help, design help, PR help, everything else. You guys are doing some of that, right? I find that odd.
I think what we're doing, instead of having a whole bunch of people doing the recruiting for a startup, what we do is we have a handful of people who really train the trainers. So we actually don't believe that we should be recruiting the first 20 engineers. What we do believe is we should help you recruit the first 2 or 3 engineers. We should open up our Rolodex and teach you how to recruit great engineers so you could be self-sufficient, for the simple reason that recruiting is a core competency. If we do it for you for the next 9 months, then you won't learn how to do it. So we have the trainer model.
Yeah, I think from the company's perspective, it's actually a bad idea to rely on those crutches, especially for too long. Like, we needed some intros to PR firms or people we had no idea how that world worked. Sequoia was helpful there. I know a lot of venture firms do that kind of stuff. Yeah. I think outsourcing to a venture firm is a bad idea because those folks have 20 companies to take care of. They're not in the building. You know, it's just a different experience. Yeah. And like you said, recruiting's important, building products important. These are things you have to get good at, and you might as well start, right?
All right, that's an interesting perspective. So Doug, you being Sequoia as well as you personally have had a great, well, you've always had great funds, but you've had a particularly great couple of years. You made the $400 million on this one company. You've had a dozen IPOs in the last couple of years, 60 billion in market cap. I don't know how much of that you guys took off the table, but it was obviously billions. More acquisitions than we can count. I mean, you guys are making just a shit ton of money, that's clear. And as an investor in your fund, I'm very happy with that. You're an investor in our fund, and it's a great business relationship. But what are you doing to protect the world from the NSA and everything the government's trying to do to destroy us as a country?
So I read your blog, and to be perfectly frank, I'm not as far left as you are, but I'm not a right-wing guy either. I'm very upset by what's been going on with the NSA. Clearly, the delicate balance between freedom and safety has been crossed. When you have one branch of government doing everything by itself, as opposed to 2 or 3 branches in the systems of checks and balances, I think that's a big, big problem. Yeah. So look, I think it's upon guys like us to make sure we keep the issue in the limelight. It's guys like you who are particularly good with a microphone in your hand just to make sure it's always at the forefront of the conversation. I think we should get our local politicians involved. I think we should donate money where it makes sense, for the simple reason we need to keep talking about this, and we need to bring the issue in balance again, because I think it's out of balance.
So you'd say you're pro-totalitarian state then, based on that?
That's not what I said.
I'm just kidding. Sanjit, what are your feelings on this? Do you have a more reasonable opinion, or?
More reasonable? You know, I think it's definitely disturbing, kind of on all fronts. When
Doug's opinion?
Doug's opinion is completely disturbing.
It's disturbing.
But no, when you read the news and every week there's something new, that's not a good feeling. But I think it's good that it's coming to the foreground. It's new technology, right? It takes a while for laws to be written and kind of this Bill of Rights that needs to be written to happen. But I think now is the time to actually put that conversation together.
All right. Doug, what are you focused on right now, investing-wise?
Right now, I spend about.
I'm sorry. Can I just put another question in?
Yes.
How's the cheese thing going? The grilled cheese company.
The grilled cheese. Oh, it's the Melt.
Right.
It has. It's going reasonably well. It's doing better at lunch than at dinner. Yeah. And we're trying to get the dinner menu right.
Have you ever eaten there?
Yes, I have.
Okay. All right. And it's like, so it's like, It's like grilled cheese sandwiches, right?
It's grilled cheese sandwiches and soup. Now, the thing you need to keep in mind is that I grew up in Italy, and we're eating bowls of pasta, not grilled cheese and soup. But I'm told that in America, all your mothers gave you grilled cheese and soup when you were growing up. So I had to buy into the whole story, because if it were up to me, I'd have some pizza for breakfast and lunch and dinner. But I guess that it appeals to the American populace.
So what are you actually focusing on right now? What are you looking for?
I spend half my time, unfortunately, on administrative issue at Sequoia Capital, being that I'm the steward of the partnership with responsibility for India, China, Israel, and so on, and the other half investing. And I spend most of that time investing in the enterprise.
Okay. Why aren't you a knight? So Michael Moritz has been knighted. I didn't realize this until yesterday.
Exactly.
So just to walk around saying Sir Michael Moritz. What about you? How do you pull that off?
Well, I don't think people that grew up in Italy can be knighted. I think we have a whole bunch of other titles, which I'm not sure what it means. Commendatore, ambasciatore, ambassador, even though you're not an ambassador.
Did you just insult my mother?
Well, exactly. I'm looking for an Italian type title to keep up with Mike.
What did he, like, what's that? What happened? Like, you make the queen and you get is there like a ceremony?
Yes, there is, although I'm not the one to ask.
But did you attend the ceremony?
No. As a matter of fact, I only read about it after the fact. Michael is a private person. He's not the kind of person that goes around the office saying, I'm going to be knighted next week.
See, now, if I was going to be knighted, I would be the guy walking around the office saying, I'm going to be knighted next week.
Me too. I'd have a big shirt. Knight in the making, of course.
Sir Doug Leone, a ring to that.
It sounds great.
Yeah. So what do you want to do in enterprise? What's the top company you're trying to invest in right now?
Top company, no, I'm not going to tell you the top company I'm trying to invest. But we have a number of SaaS companies that are growing extremely rapidly. Let me just say that.
All right. Okay. Well, hey, congratulations on becoming, well, maybe not a billionaire, but hundreds of millionaire. Congratulations on making so much money. It's a wonderful partnership, and I love these case studies. We've done Green Dot with you guys as well a couple of years ago. Just really interesting to see these investments that go for 5, 6, 7 years and then have a happy ending. So thanks very much for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you.
Great, thanks for having us.
Thanks.